Okay, so this one's got a lot of opportunities. So this is typically where you're going to want to start like reviewing the campaign. That's what I always do. You can also go to the admin, but this just gives you a clear sign of all the activity. So obviously you're familiar with the nurture process. And then down here, you can see that there's a new account opportunity. So the new account opportunity is obviously for brand new accounts. You can see this one was lost. You can see this was back in October, and then it got picked up again in December, and then looks like it was went live somewhere around February. But you can obviously verify that on the account record. Going through their history, you can see that there was an update, no box, no approval. This is probably an update to, the launch campaign, which you can see over here was anonymous email with an 11% off discount. So unique incentive that they're running. And then they wanted to update the CTA destination. Then you can go and see they added a campaign last month. And after that, they wanted to add a spring sale. It's not immediately clear whether it's for the TTs or the anon, but we can jump in and look at that later. And then you can see that they had an issue where Anon was not collecting new leads. So now you have kind of a quick overview of all the activity that's happened as they're going live and after they went live. And then what you want to do next is jump in and take a look at the CSDs. So let's start with the anonymous. So the CSDs are always linked over here for each opportunity. One thing to be mindful of is for some reason, Salesforce cannot count past three. So if there are four CSDs, it'll say three plus, and then you have to click view all to actually see them all listed. So when you come into this view, you can see the name as well as the CSD link, and they'll all be shown here. So keep an eye out for that. Going into the actual CSD, so this is connected to our admin as well as our wiki. So if you're in the wiki, you can go over here at the top and bounce between wiki admin and Salesforce. At the very top of the CSD, this is where you're going to see tasks for updates. So this is typically like a brand new campaign, brand new account. It's not going to have any tasks. So these are for things that have happened after that initial CSD was created. And so you can see that they wanted to update the coupon. So that's all that is. Down here under overview, you can see the summary. This is where there's a very brief outline calling out any unique things that the campaign might have. Site IDs, these won't always be filled out for brand new accounts, but they'll come back and add them when they are requesting updates. So they know exactly the ID of the campaign that needs to be edited. Can kind of ignore this, this, you know, it's sometimes relevant, most of the time it's not. Now we're in the strategy section. So if you look at lead source, you can see consumer database plus upsell at wrapper. Are you familiar with the different types of email campaigns that we do? Is anybody not familiar with the different types? I'll just go through them real quick. So we have consumer database, which gives us an upsell at wrapper where it'll have something at the top of the email that says, this is an inbox incentives special advertisement, basically. What we're doing is acting as a third-party service that's sending the email on behalf of the account. If it's only on pre-capture, where we're collecting the email list off their checkout and we're not using any kind of third-party information, then the email is going to look like it came from us. It won't have that, or sorry, it came from the merchant. It won't have that wrapper at the top. It'll all be branded to the client. Same thing with returning visitor ID. This is where we're going to capture your remarket to people who've maybe purchased before and use that their client list. And then this is a client data pass where sometimes they just use an API and send us over leads and either at once at the beginning or an ongoing thing where they're continually sending us new leads.
For what it's worth, those last two I have never once used in my entire career here.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there for onboarding, we don't typically start out with either one of those strategies. It's going to be the consumer database plus with the wrapper or the abandoned form pre-capture where it's client branded.
Yeah, very good point. Strategy type. This is where you can see whether or not there's no incentive. So it's just like, hey, come back and buy, unique incentive, low stock. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you get the idea. This is where you can get a general gist of what the email is trying to do, what kind of marketing messaging they're going to be using. The incentive type, single use coupon. This is going to be single use coupon is going to be like one of those XYZ 725 type coupons where they can only use it once per user versus like save 10 is something that anybody anywhere could use. I'm getting a little in the weeds here, but I think it's important to know since we're going through it anyway. Discount description. This is where you can tell it's 11% off. This is the link to the all the unique coupon codes. Don't need to worry about that. Don't need to worry about the coupon expiration. If there's anything unique about the strategy, it'll often be in here. So you want to keep an eye out for that because sometimes it'll list out different limitations that the campaign has, which could play into your optimization ideas. Under engagement, you have pages. Typically for email, it's going to be all for both pages and sages because we just want to market anybody whose email address we have. Visitors, this is where we specify visitor segments like new customers, people that have never purchased, or people that are not logged in. Also, just gives you insight into some of the goals and limitations the account might have. Now we have start time, kind of irrelevant for you guys at least. You can look at geolocations, it's another segmentation, traffic sources. You can understand segmentation here. So this is obviously different, countries. Traffic sources would be things like, only affiliate traffic or only organic traffic, that kind of stuff. Down here, you can see how many emails are in the series. So there's 3 emails in this series. No opt-in required, no cart rebuilder being used, no data pass from the client, and we're not currently A/B testing anything. And now this will kind of give you an outline. Typically, the team will have some notes in here. This one's kind of blank, but you can keep moving. And you can ignore the tracking area. You can kind of ignore the re-engagement rules because these aren't very malleable typically. The client is specifying those. And then now we have assets. So this is where you can come in and see exactly what design was approved. This isn't necessarily the designs that currently live, but it's a good place to start. Let's see if this will, there we go. So you can just jump in real quick, and now you get a nice clean overview of the email series. This is that wrapper I was talking about, inbox incentives. This is where it's like positioning this as a third-party advertisement right down here. This is a third-party advertisement. And so now you got a good sense of what the email designs look like. And so you can start to formulate ideas about reasons you think that this might not be performing as well as it possibly could. Deliverables, these are cut up images of the designs. So you really typically no reason to look at those unless there aren't mock-ups. Sometimes if it's an update, then there won't be mock-ups and you just have to look at the deliverables to get a better sense. And then this is where we can jump into the copy doc. So if you want to make optimizations to the copy, then it's a good idea to maybe clone this doc, and then you could start adding revisions on top of this, or use it as a jumping off point or reference point. So you don't have to copy it out of Figma if you don't want to. Any questions so far? Great. Um, and then importantly, the testing instructions. So this is really your source of truth for the account if you want to go in and see how it works and how it looks and all that kind of stuff. Um, so you can come in here.
Anonymous is probably the worst one to show them how to test.
Let's look at this, like grab
With
session
looking at
ID
you
and
have to
look it
get the
up here.
session ID, you have to go in the back end and you almost have to do like a little bit of code work to get the session ID. So just for the record, you don't have to learn how to do that. Just ask like me or another PM or CSM. Testing anonymous is not fun and waiting for the email to come through your inbox. We can show you how to force it through to come right away.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it's really more important for the on-site stuff because the email formatting is always going to be pretty true to that mockup. Sometimes you'll go in and you'll test it and you'll see that the live example of the design doesn't really match the mockups. Maybe, some font isn't loading or something is positioned strangely or the button might not be, clicking as expected. There's a lot more that can go wrong. Hopefully you don't find anything, but you might. And that's basically a email CSD. So let's real quick go through the target tactics CSD, which if we go back to our list of opportunities, we have one right here. So same thing, you click in, you can see there's two. We have it segmented. So we have active cart, which, anybody that has something in the shopping cart, no matter where are on the site, versus cart page. Sometimes we're only launching on the cart page. Active cart means anywhere on the site as long as the cart is active. So you can see we have segmented by men and women. So if we come in and take, oops, I always do that, click the wrong darn link. Now the layout you'll see is pretty darn similar here. Um, and I guess one other thing I forgot to mention is there are two different view modes. So I always look at everything like this because I'm making edits on the fly, but it might actually be better for you guys to look at it like this because then it strips out all of the irrelevant information. So you're only looking at the fields that are filled out. It's kind of a more condensed view, a little easier on the eyes. But for the sake of running through the CSD and explaining everything, I'm just going to show you all of the fields. So same concept, brief description, site IDs you can see here. You can tell it's a precise promotion. Um, Same idea with the strategy type, incentive type, discount description. This is all the same. And then now here we can see the desktop launch. So we're launching on desktop on abandonment. This is the animation for the launch and the aggressiveness, which is basically how sensitive it is to launch and how quickly it'll launch after an exit behavior is detected. Turn that aggressive all the way up and it'll launch real quick. Turn it way down and it'll have a bigger delay for when that mouse leaves the browser and when we show them the modal. Coming down here to mobile launch. So we have back off page, cart, and checkout only. So this means, excuse me, that the modal on mobile should only launch if somebody is on a cart page or checkout page and hits the back button. Okay. Also, there's back off site. What this does is it waits until the entrance page is reached and then it launches. So if you're 10 pages deep and the user just clicks the back button, 9 times and they find themselves back on that entrance page, that's when we launch. It's anticipating that person's about to back all the way off the site. And so we want to engage them then. And quick scroll is basically when you're navigating a website and you do like a quick flip up to expose the browser Chrome at the bottom, to show the navigation, then we're anticipating, hey, this person is about to navigate away from the site. So we're going to engage them at that point. Any questions on any of that?
I will say just note the mobile launch is an or statement, not an and statement. So whichever action happens first is how we will launch. It doesn't launch every time one of those occurs. It's just whichever one detects first, back off page or back off site or quick scroll.
Yeah, very good point. Um, this is the launch animation. The aggressiveness is the same concept as desktop, where it's just how quickly and how sensitive each of these mechanisms are working. Same idea here, although I'll go into it in more depth now that it's actually more relevant. So for pages, this is where we can specify only people that are on certain pages of the site. So only do it. It's mainly pertaining to desktop because of the rules that are up here. These don't necessarily play into the pages part of this engagement section. It's desktop where we're specifying it. It does, however, play into stages. So as I mentioned, what active cart is. So that's where I'm saying if there's something in the cart, any page, we're going to engage. This one, it says if most or all items in the cart are for men, and that's because this is the men's segment. For stages, there's also all of these. So you guys all know what a bounce is, right? That's the entrance page. They're leaving the entrance page. Page view, so they can specify only people who might have hit the help page or what other random page. Now that's part of the rules in order to get to launch. They have to have viewed that page to get it to trigger. Anytime after a product view, commonly called a PDP, product, what is it? Just product page? I'm not sure what the D stands for, to be honest, but it's a product page. That's all you have to know. And then, so pre-cart, this is where we want to exclude anybody that has something in their shopping cart. So sometimes if somebody has something in the cart, the merchant doesn't want to have us interact with them. We only want to be engaging people that have empty carts. Pre-checkout active cart. So this is somebody who has not hit the checkout page, but they have something in their shopping cart. Active checkout is anybody who's hit the checkout page and now they could be anywhere else on the site. It's the same concept as active cart, except now the requirement is to have viewed the checkout page. Post-purchase, after same session conversion. So this is somebody who just bought something and maybe now they're browsing around because they got pushed back down the funnel and they might be buying something else. This is probably one that Jill will tell you we don't very often do. It's
Correct.
extremely rare. Um,
Yep.
pre-submit, this means that they've not provided any kind of contact information. So we're only engaging people that are anonymous. Post-submit would be anybody who submitted a form. I'm not sure why we would do that, but it's an option. Um, let's
Yeah,
see
you'll
here.
typically see all pages, product, pre-cart, and active cart. Those are primarily the ones that we start off with onboarding. If we go further down the funnel, you may see some weird ones, but we try to keep it pretty simple for onboarding.
And just because we are recording this, somebody has some kind of sound coming through in the background. If you don't mind, just maybe everybody just mute themselves so we're not calling out anybody in particular, but just keep it quiet that way.
Sorry.
Okay. And so for engagement, this is where we're going to specify, start time and end time. So if it's like a seasonal campaign, some kind of flash sale, that's how you can tell, when we're starting and stopping the campaign. We've already gone over geolocations, traffic sources, traffic exposure, um, incremental lift test. Is everybody, well, the difference between an incremental lift test and a split test is a split test is when you have upsell it campaign variant A versus upsell it campaign variant B. An incremental lift test is upsell it versus no upsell it. We do not like doing incremental lift tests because they cost us money because now it's limiting how many people we can, we can execute on. However, sometimes clients, they want to prove that there was an incremental lift. So we set up that test and that's where you can see it right there. For optimization ideas, if you see that there is an incremental lift test that's going on, this is a good chance for you to go in and look and say like, okay, now I'm going to go into the client reporting and figure out how are we doing? Have we proved incrementality? Most likely the PMs and the PEs are already on top of it, but it's worth looking at just in case they miss something and you're seeing, hey, there's a clear winner here. Let's include that in our optimization, report. And let's see, engagement notes. So UTMs are basically traffic sources. So if the source is attentive, if the source is from an email, if the source is from an SMS, then we're not going to launch. So that's just another way to define the traffic segments. And if anybody has a question at any time, just feel free to interrupt me. I'll stop asking if you do. And let's see here. On-site design notes. This is kind of a nice place for a brief summary. If there's something unique about it, it'll kind of cue you in. Hey, this campaign's doing something different than normal. Same thing with copy. So this is where you can see an A/B test, whether or not we are currently doing any split tests. We do not have split tests. Post-click boost bar. So this is if somebody clicks redeem now on that pop-up, and then after they click it, it'll have a little strip, usually at the bottom, sometimes at the top, that reminds the user, hey, this 10% discount will be applied at checkout. If the user's eligible, we'll sometimes have a button in there that says, go straight to checkout, and it'll take them along to the checkout page. This is a great optimization tool if we're seeing a decently high click-through rate and a low post-click conversion rate, then hey, maybe this is a good chance for us to drop in a boost bar and remind that user and reassure them that, hey, this discount will actually apply. It's just a nice little reinforcement, another lever that we can pull. And then down here, you'll see the design sections. So here you can see the headline for the design and the call to action. This is where they can specify the kind of design. So if it's designer's choice, that means the client is open to whatever we come up with. If you see that it's specified as, say, a floating overlay or a full screen takeover, we don't do many of these. Sidebar left, sidebar right, side slider, and then the boost bar that we just talked about, or something that's in page. Sometimes this is because the PE has a personal preference. Sometimes it's because the client has limitations. So when you see something that's specified, it's not a bad idea to reach out to the PE or maybe even the PM and say, hey, was this a client specification, or are they open to other ideas?
If it's John, it's a PE specification. He only wants a sidebar. Just fun fact.
That's important information. Okay, let's see here. Dynamic elements. This is another good thing that you want to keep in mind because it's another way to optimize the campaign. If we're only doing, the top item in cart, well then, hey, let's say they have multiple SKUs. Oftentimes when you see top item in cart, it's because they have limited SKUs that people are only buying one thing at a time. But if they have a whole bunch of SKUs, then a good optimization could be let's try the top three items in cart. If they have top three, hey, maybe it's a good idea to test out scrollable cart contents where it literally shows every item in their cart in the modal. Recommended products is another thing to test out. If they have a static campaign that doesn't have any dynamic information, maybe it's a pre-cart campaign, so there isn't any items in the cart, but they don't have recommendations. Well, hey, maybe we want to point them in the right direction. And then product page item. So this would be typically for pre-cart abandonment. So we would show them the product that they just most recently viewed, whether they're on the product page or they just viewed the product during the session before abandoning. And we can skip over tracking, engagement. Same thing with the assets. You can view the mockups here. I won't go into it. Client assets, this is where you can see when the client has provided us maybe style guides or maybe some images that they'd like included in the design. It's a good thing if they have this, it's not common, but it's not rare. But to take a look and see what did the client ask for? What did we end up with? And maybe there's some other ideas that are already in the client assets that it'll be like kind of inspiring for, things to test. And then coming all the way down, now we can find some sane testing instructions. So you can see you click this link, you add to cart, and you abandon. So
The
that's,
only disclaimer to this is use a private window. Do not use a regular browser. You'll get cookied, so you can only see it one time every 30 days usually. So always, always, always use a private window unless you're going to clear your cookies immediately after, which is annoying, and you lose anything you have saved. So just make sure you always use a private window. That will never be included in the testing instructions, but it's very important to know,
yeah, excellent point.
as Brian uses a public window.
Well, for the purpose of this demo, it'll be fine. Um, so one thing when you jump in, you want to start taking notes on what they're currently doing on the website. So you see that they have an entrance modal that's offering 10% off. And so maybe this is something that we could suggest taking over. It's probably already been discussed with the client, but maybe it's not. And so maybe this is something we could be doing better. And let's see if this takes me into a form field. Yeah, so they're doing a lead capture after you click on it. Wonder it might even ask for a cell phone after it. But to start like thinking about, okay, what other things they're currently doing on the site, and so that we can identify what gaps we can fill. So I'm going to close out of this, get rid of this annoying stuff, and add an item to the cart for the instructions. All right, I add some to the cart. And now when I go to abandon, I see our execution. So this is a good chance. You probably want to screenshot it too, just because,
Sorry, real quick. Are you on a really big external screen right now?
yeah. Yeah, is it tiny for you guys?
Yeah, that's not right. I don't like that. I'm gonna test it on mine real quick.
It's not matching the mockups. I guess I should have
It
pulled up the
should
mockups.
it should be like a standard overlay size, and on yours it looked super small.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with my Zoom settings, so it might be me, but you could be right here.
I just want to double check to be sure because I don't want them to get
Yeah,
up.
yeah, because you're right. Yeah, it should be 3x on a screen this size. Anyway, so at this point, you want to take a screenshot of the design so that, like Jill just pointed out, maybe it's not displaying correctly. There's going to be some QA in this job where you're going to find mistakes, you're going to find issues, and part of this job is identifying them. And we don't want to put that in the report, but maybe we want to quickly fix it behind the scenes before we present. Um, So here you can see a call out. We're doing strike through pricing of the old price, highlighting the new one, highlighting the savings. This one's got, a whole bunch of little, I don't know, tactics, I guess, for illustrating the discount. So you can start thinking, what else could we do? Maybe there's too much information going on here. There's a lot of numbers. Maybe simplifying this design would be more effective. So really just once you jump into the site, just start thinking like, what are they doing and what can we be doing better?
You can also think of yourself like if you were actually purchasing this product and this happened to you, do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it too busy? Is it not busy enough? Is it saying, hey, I get 15% off and I don't know how to do that math? Like, just show it to me. Those are kind of things you can think of. That's what I think of like as a consumer, like, do I have a preference to it? Do I not? What have you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Put yourself in their shoes. Think, would this work on me? And if not, why? Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess we're at time. I'll send out an invite for our next meeting where we can kind of start jumping into the admin and reporting. So